The desert was an endless ocean of gold and silence. The wind carried whispers of war, sand hissing like the ghosts of the fallen. In the middle of that nowhere stood Forward Base Falcon, a lonely American outpost surrounded by dunes and heat. Inside, tension brewed, not from the enemy, but from within. Lieutenant Ryan Cole, barely 27, walked through the camp like he owned the desert itself. His uniform was spotless, his sunglasses mirrored the sun, and his pride was taller than the watchtower. He was the new officer in charge, young, confident, and utterly convinced that experience was overrated. He stopped by a tent where an older man sat cleaning a worn-out rifle. "Sergeant Major Walker," Ryan said sharply. "You're late with the patrol report again." The older man didn't look up immediately. His hands were slow, precise, movements of habit carved from decades of war. Finally, he raised his head. His face was a map of scars and calm. "Report's right there on your desk, sir," he said in a low voice. "Filed it an hour ago." Ryan frowned. "Next time, you report directly to me before doing anything." "Understood." Walker gave a small nod. "Yes, sir." But inside, the men who overheard the exchange exchanged glances. Everyone in that camp knew who Walker was, the man who had survived 3 wars, 2 explosions, and 1 betrayal. The legendary veteran, they called him. The man whose stories were whispered around campfires, who'd seen more death than the lieutenant had seen sunrises. But to Ryan Cole, he was just an old man living on borrowed time. That night, as the desert cooled and the horizon bled purple, the radio crackled with static. "Command to Falcon Base. Possible insurgent convoy moving east of your position. Prepare recon." Ryan smirked. Finally, some action. He ordered the patrol to move at dawn. 4 Humvees. Sand armor. Sun rising behind them like a golden explosion. Walker approached quietly. "Sir, if I may, the terrain east is full of dry wadis and soft sand. Ideal for an ambush. I recommend we go west first, flank from higher ground." Ryan's lips curved in arrogance. "Thank you for your suggestion, Sergeant Major, but I'll handle the tactics. You're riding with me." Walker sighed, his weathered eyes watching the boy play soldier in a real war. "As you wish, sir." The convoy rolled out. Sand roared under the wheels. The wind carried tension like gunpowder. Inside the lead Humvee, Ryan was all confidence. "You know, Walker," he said, glancing at the old man, "back in my academy, we learn how to command, not just react. You vets, you always wait for things to happen." Walker looked out the window. "Experience teaches patience, sir. The desert doesn't forgive mistakes." Ryan laughed. "The desert doesn't scare me." Walker's voice dropped. "It should." 2 hours later, they entered a canyon, walls of rock towering over them like silent gods. The sun disappeared. Shadows grew long and cold. Then, boom! The explosion threw the first Humvee sideways. The sand erupted into fire and metal. Screams echoed as shrapnel ripped through the air. "Ambush!" shouted someone. Bullets rained from the cliffs. Dust blinded vision. The convoy was trapped, a kill zone. Ryan ducked behind a rock, face pale, his training colliding with fear. They hit us from both sides. What do we do?" Walker, calm even under fire, crawled beside him. "We hold ground and move west. There's a dry riverbed. From there we can flank." Ryan shook his head. "No, we attack straight ahead. Push through." Walker's jaw tightened. "Sir, that's suicide." "I gave an order." Ryan shouted. Walker stared at him for a long second, then nodded. "Understood." He rose, signaled to the men, and moved first, not out of obedience, but out of duty to the soldiers, to keep them alive. Bullets tore through the air. Walker moved like a ghost of wars past, precise, fearless, efficient. Each shot from his rifle was a heartbeat of experience. Ryan followed, but panic blurred his vision. His commands were sharp but useless. 2 men fell. The rest began to scatter. Walker grabbed the young lieutenant by the vest and pulled him behind cover just as a grenade landed where Ryan had been. The explosion shook the canyon. "Next time, listen," Walker growled. Ryan gasped, coughing dust and blood. "We are surrounded." Walker's eyes darted across the battlefield. "Not yet." He pointed to a narrow slope behind the ridge. "I'll draw their fire. You lead the men around that corner. It connects to the old wadi." Ryan's eyes widened. You'll never make it. Walker smiled faintly. I've heard that before. And then he went, into the storm. The veteran rose from cover like a figure carved out of dust and legend. His rifle barked thunder. Every movement was deliberate, every shot a story of survival. The insurgents turned their fire toward him, screaming curses in the smoke. Ryan hesitated. For the first time, his arrogance cracked, and what was beneath it was fear and respect. He shouted, "Move! Move with me!" The soldiers obeyed, sprinting toward the ridge. Sand kicked up under boots, bullets slicing air behind them. Walker covered them until his last magazine clicked empty. Then, switching to his sidearm, he crawled toward a fallen soldier, pulled the man's radio, and whispered, "Command, this is Falcon 2. Requesting air support. Marking position." He popped a red smoke grenade, a crimson flower rising against the pale desert. High above, jets roared like divine beasts. Moments later, the sky split open. Explosions rolled across the canyon, turning rock into flame. The ground trembled. When the smoke cleared, the ambushes were gone, buried under their own fire. Ryan and the survivors regrouped by the ridge. Dust covered their faces, eyes burning, hearts pounding. "Where's Walker?" someone asked. Ryan turned back toward the battlefield and saw the veteran standing alone in the haze, smoke curling around him. His uniform torn, helmet gone, but his posture unbroken. Ryan ran to him. You did it. You saved us." Walker smiled faintly. "No, Lieutenant. We did it. You gave the order to move. That's leadership." Ryan's throat tightened. "I was wrong about you." Walker looked into the endless desert. "You weren't wrong. You just hadn't learned yet." Back at base, as night fell, silence replaced gunfire. The medics tended the wounded. Ryan sat outside, staring at the stars, the same stars Walker had seen through countless wars. The veteran limped over, a mug of coffee in hand. "Can't sleep." Ryan shook his head. "Every time I close my eyes, I see the explosion." Walker sat beside him. "Then you're learning. The ones who sleep easy, they're the dangerous ones." Ryan looked at him. "How do you keep going?" Walker smiled wearily. "Because someone has to teach the next fool not to make the same mistake I did." Ryan laughed quietly. "Then I guess I'm that fool." Walker raised his mug. "To fools who live long enough to learn." They clinked cups in the moonlight. Weeks later, a convoy from command arrived. The officer in charge approached Ryan with a salute. "Lieutenant Cole, command reviewed your engagement report. Excellent tactical recovery. They're recommending you for commendation." Ryan nodded, then gestured toward Walker. It was Sergeant Major Walker who made it possible. The officer frowned. "Walker? The old vet? He's not on active commendation list. Retiring next month." Ryan's expression hardened. "Then delay it. He's the reason any of us are standing." Walker, standing behind them, shook his head slightly. "Let it go, son. I've had my medals. You wear this one for both of us." Ryan's voice dropped. "You're not just a soldier, sir. You're the desert itself." Walker smiled. "The desert doesn't remember names, Lieutenant. Only who walks out of it alive." When Walker finally left the base, he didn't say goodbye. He just handed Ryan his old combat knife, the blade scratched, the handle worn smooth. "Keep it sharp," he said. "It's not for fighting. It's for remembering." Ryan watched him walk into the horizon, a figure swallowed by the dunes, fading into legend. From that day, every time Ryan faced a mission, he carried that knife, and the silence of a man who taught him what leadership truly meant. Months later, another young lieutenant arrived at Falcon Base, full of swagger and youth. He strutted across the camp, shouting orders, claiming control. Ryan, now calmer, wiser, watched quietly from the same spot where Walker once sat cleaning his rifle. He smiled faintly and said to the rookie, "Reports on your desk. And kid, don't underestimate the old hands. The desert's full of ghosts who can still shoot straighter than you." The rookie blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ryan looked out at the dunes glowing under the setting sun. "It means you'll learn, one way or another." As the wind rose again, carrying the echo of distant battles, Ryan could almost hear Walker's voice whisper through the sand. "The desert doesn't forgive arrogance, but it honors those who learn humility." And somewhere beyond the horizon,